hereby call the Appomattox County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. We welcome everyone that's in attendance. Glad you're here to be with us in our meeting here tonight. And at this time, we will have our Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for our invocation by Mr. Hinkle.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our God and Father, we just thank you for being the sovereign God of all over the universe and control. We thank you for protecting Appomattox County from many of the issues and mishaps and violence that happens in other counties and keeping us safe. We thank you for the EMS that we have, the fire departments and the sheriff's departments that do serve the county and the citizens well. Just be with us tonight and guide us in making our decisions that will be beneficial to the citizens we represent. For we ask it in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Setting of the agenda, anyone have any items to be added? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Chairman, I move we approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we have with us tonight, Mr. Johnny Rourke, who's going to be discussing the capital improvement project funding with the board.
And you have in front of you the sheet with the agreement stuff, so that's what we're working off of tonight. Chairman, members of the board, if you recall, back about a month ago, you had a budget workshop and we had some discussions on the CIP and the various projects. And at that meeting, you asked staff to go back and put the various projects in some sort of order, some sort of priority list. So this list right here represents an attempt at putting those in an order that makes sense over the next 5 years. So you'll start, if you start looking under the current FY23 line, you'll see those first three projects, the wheel loader, the compactor container replacement, and the Pamplin Fire Department equipment. Those are projects that we discussed at the last meeting about paying out the current year budget. That money, if you recall, was a little less than $500,000 in the line for CIP this year. Y'all paid the camera out of that line, so you've got a little less than $500,000 in that line. So those three projects amount to $184,000. So the idea is to do those three out of current year funding. Then you move forward into the plan, and you just, year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we just lay them out, the various projects. If you look down, year 1 has a high price tag on it, but that includes the old courthouse renovation project. And that number there is a placeholder number, so that's what we're looking at there. But, you've got, Ms. Adams, what is the current? 350,000?
It's about 500.
500, okay. So to do the other projects, you'll have that in the proposed budget going forward. And you've got some ARPA money, I believe, is what y'all talked about with that project. Then the rest of the projects just kind of flow out across the years, and as you get into those, as you do each of the budgets moving forward, these projects will move forward or back. You're really not approving any given project in the out years to be funded in that particular year. This is a guide, it's a plan for you. So we just wanted to bring it back before you one last time as we're working through the budget. Make sure that we understand that the three projects for the current FY are what you want to go with, and give you some idea of how the projects will flow in the next few years. Try to answer any questions if you have them. One question you had from last time I did check with the chief chief down in Pamplin, and that is a lower number than what they had submitted back in January, because they've done some, real positive fundraising. So there's less of a need there. So that number is 50,000 instead of what they were looking for before. So I want to point that out. And that came from the chief.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hogan.
just looking at that, year 3, new roof improvements, do we have any roof issues that need addressing now rather than waiting 3 years?
That project is putting an A-roof on
Okay,
the county administration building and getting the equipment off. I don't think it's an immediate need, that's why we put it out.
okay, so it's not a leak we need to fix, that we're gonna wait 3 years to fix it, okay. Thank you, that's all I need to ask.
I think to elaborate on that, there are leaks, as you noticed in the conference room, but a lot of that is due to when they do repair work to the HVAC equipment, screws and different things like that get embedded down in the roof and they create little leak holes.
That's all, I just want to bring it to you. And if this works for you, that's what we will go with.
You've done a good job. I mean, it's right here in black and white. Any other questions for Mr. Rourke?
Mr. Chairman, would the board entertain us utilizing the FY '23 funds to go ahead and fund these 3 projects?
Well, oh, yeah, on the solid waste and public safety. I don't have a problem with it. What's the rest of the board think?
If I understood correctly, we have the money in that line item to cover these 3 things, and, yeah, let's take care of it now.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I'll make it in form of a motion.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Hips. Reverend. Mr. Hinkle.
Aye.
Mr. Hogan.
Aye.
I vote aye. Okay. Good point, Ms. Adams. Any other items?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I'll
Hogan.
just ask a question. If there's any money left over in that capital improvement line item that we don't spend this year, that rolls over, it just adds to that savings account, right? So we
Well-
can, because that $2 million figure coming up, a couple of years, are we socking away some now for that? Because we won't have $2 million in 2 years.
We have not in the past, but I would ask the board if they would entertain that we carry that forward from year to year and put it in a reserve fund for these larger projects.
Then you'll have a number with that. Then, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that in July.
Mr. Chairman, do we need a motion to authorize that carry forward now or wait until July?
That's what I was wondering.
Well, we would need, you can set the policy, but we will not know that amount till everything's expensed out in June.
So the best thing to do is just vote on it when it comes up.
Either way, I mean, you could set that as an annual policy, take a vote for that, but then when the amount comes to reappropriate, we would just bring that to you to make another motion.
You want to make that in the form of a motion, Mr. Hinkle?
What fund would we specify? Is this just leftover funds in general, or is it a specific line item fund?
It's specific to capital improvement, it's that one department.
Okay. Well, I would move that we make it a policy to roll over any leftover capital improvement funds into the following year. And with the vote being made when we find, or the amount being voted on when the audit is complete.
Motion duly made, is that second? And second, further discussion? Have a roll call vote, Mr. Hips, Reverend Jones, Mr. Hinkle,
Aye.
Mr. Hogan. And I also vote aye. Any other items come before the board at this time on the CIP? All right. Thank you. Next is citizen public comment period. This time is provided by the board to allow citizens the opportunity to address the board on issues of importance to the citizen. No individual citizen shall be permitted to address the board for more than 3 minutes. And we have, it's our pleasure, Mrs. Eleanor Johnson. Please come and state your name and address for the record.
Eleanor Johnson, 125 Hawk Lane, Pamplin. Promise y'all I'm not complaining tonight. I'm here to say thank you for a job well done. I thank the board for standing behind me, getting the road approved, for surface treating. The work has been done, and I've lived to see it, and I'm happy about that. But I thank each one of you all, and especially Mr. Hogan, Mr. Carter. You all have my devotion, and I thank you for it. And I see Mr. Brown is here tonight, so I will also say thank you to VDOT, and a great big thank you to Paul Martin and his work crew. They did a fabulous job, and I am very excited to say my road is completed. And once again, thank you all.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you for those kind words, and we hope now things will work out a whole lot better for all the residents there. Anyone else to speak? Is it anyone here who failed to sign up and would like to address the board? Okay, moving on. Next, we got another county employee, Mr. John Spencer, who's Information Services and Manager of Purchasing Agent. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. I'll make this short and hopefully sweet. It's been better part of a year since the full board has heard any update on the old courthouse project. And just thought it was a good time to come in and say that, well, in short, the Facilities Committee has gone down the road for the better part of a year with one firm, one architectural firm, and basically decided that the project needed to go into a different direction. So that direction was a PPEA project, Public-Private Partnership Act, similar to what some school projects have been completed by recently. So what we did on April the 26th, we released an RFP under the PPEA for proposals, basically design, build PPEA proposals for the courthouse. And we have shown the courthouse to 2 different groups so far. A couple other groups have inquired. Don't know if they will come tour the building. We don't know how many proposals we're going to get. But the proposals were due on June the 7th. We have, based on feedback from some of the groups, lengthened that, moved that out to June the 22nd. So that will give them time to take a look at the building, to get with their various subs, because really with a PPA type project, you have a contractor and an architect that works closely with the committee, and they basically work together with you to build what it is that you want to have built. So that is the process. That's where we are with things right now, and I just thought it was prudent to let the full board know that. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Spencer? Well, thank you for sharing that information with us. All right. We'll enter into a public hearing on VDOT six-year plan, FY 24 through 2029. Welcome, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. I have a final six-year plan that I'd like to give you all. It's in a little different format than that you received.
Thank you, sir.
I have some extra copies if anybody else would like to look at it while we're going through it. Anyone in order? It's always a pleasure to come before the board and finalize the revisions to the secondary road construction program for Appomattox County. As many of you know, and Sammy alluded to at the last work session, this is not the process that it used to be. It used to be some serious dollars and a lot of competition throughout the county to get their roads paved, and that's kind of diminished somewhat over the years because our program is not nearly as large as it has been. I do want to note, and I looked this up before I come, we are down to about 27 miles of unpaved road in Appomattox County. So we keep whittling away at it. Unfortunately, when your mileages go down, so do your allocations, because they're all based on formula, and they redid the formula this year, redid a recalculation. And if you look on this front page, these are our allocations for the next 6 years, or projected allocations for the next 6 years. And you'll see two types of funding on here. On the top line, you'll see telefee money, and that is telecommunications money that VDOT receives for letting people have communication lines on our right-of-way, and it is divided up amongst all the counties. So every county gets telefee money. And if you see in FY 24, we'll get about $44,000 of telefee money. And then the next line you'll see is called District Grant Unpaid Road Funds. This is designated funding that has to be spent on unpaid roads. So, and that amounts to $185,000 for FY 24. And in FY 25, the funding is a little bit less, but if you look in the third year, you see a pretty good reduction. We go from 185 this year to a projected allocation of 81 in FY 26. So don't know if that'll get any better or not, folks. I really don't. But whatever we get, we'll make it work for the county, and we'll spend it. If you flip over to page 2, you'll see a project on here, the Dreaming Creek Road. That project was completed last year, and it was 2.2 miles. We completed that last year, and it's still showing up in the plan because it has not been financially closed, but that project is complete. And The next one you see is Hawk Lane and Ms. Elder. We finished that this week. We still got a little bit more work to do out there for seeding and stabilization of the slopes and the ditch lines, but for the most part, we're finished. That was our second priority, and that is, for the most part, completed. And then you'll see our third project, Hancock Road, doing 1.5 miles of Hancock Road. Questionable whether we'll get that built this year or not, depending on how the funding runs as far as any balances that we can move to get that funded so that we can get construction authorization. But we are working on that as if we are going to build it this year. And that's all that's in FY '24 to build. And then the fourth project, Cedar Bend Road, 675, that'll fall in line as soon as we can get it. That may be FY '25. And then the fifth priority is another section of Hancock Road, another 1.4 mile section. That should fall in line after, maybe in the latter years of the plan. But that's running about $295,000. And that's really all the unpaved road projects that we have. Like I said, our funding is down pretty good, but, you know, and one thing else that's hurting us, and we're gonna go over our budget on Hawk Lane, it's just the cost of materials is just went very high. And we did have a inflationary factor in there, but that seems not to be quite adequate. But so our dollars are not buying what they used to, just like everybody knows that. And then the last item on here, you'll see a countywide item for transportation services, and that is really where we're dumping all of these telefees into this line item. And this line item is what we use to make little safety improvements on secondary roads throughout the county. Any new signs that we put up, this funding pays for that. Now, we can use this money to help funding with an unpaid road if we have to, if it needs something just to get it to where we can get it under construction. We do use it for that and have used it for that. But it's kind of a little slush fund to catch a lot of things that really, a lot of them would be too small to fund any other way. So folks, that's our budget. Like I said, it's not a lot to it, but it is important to everyone. And just as Ms. Elder said, folks, when they get their road heart service, it improves their quality of life, and that's what we're wanting to do. The second sheet you have is just a unpaid road priority list. It doesn't mean anything as far as a 6-year plan, but what it does do, it gives us, when we can add additional projects to the 6-year plan, we would have some idea of what the board wants in here. And we do not have to do anything with this tonight. This is more for your information and consideration, because as you can see, we've got enough, we won't be adding projects probably for another, we probably won't add any projects next year. I don't see us adding projects to the plan next year. But this is just a list that we keep that has public input, that any roads that you all bring, like from your constituents, I'd like to get my road paved, we put it on this list just to get it recorded, and you all set the priorities on how you want us to do it. So that's really what this is. Not really asking you to do anything with this tonight, but this is the 6-year plan. And technically, kind of like, the first year is really the only year you're proving the FY '24 construction plan, because all the other allocations are just projected, and they will change some. So this is what we have tonight. I'll be glad to answer any questions from the board or anyone about this plan.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Mr. Brown, I have a question for you. I have a family that lives at 1927 Bellevue Road, and they're concerned about
have dirt road concerns. Are you familiar with Bellevue Road? They said they've been living there for 24 years.
Okay. And I'm not, what route is it?
I'm not sure, just how Bellevue Road. Mr. Hinkle, can you tell me what their concern was? Do you remember specifically what they contacted you about? Other than it being a dirt road?
Tremendous problem with the rate of speed that the cars go up and down the road. It just raises a dust cloud equivalent to an Oklahoma dust storm.
Okay. I will find out where it's at, and I'm sorry I don't know that right off the top of my head, but we can certainly, would you like us to add it to this list?
Well,
Or,
I just-
and look at it for
Yes, I like
whatever
just to look
maintenance it
at
needs now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Hogan.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Brown, you said that the Dreaming Creek project was done other than some financial closeouts. Would that affect the funding number for FY '24, or is that all gonna be FY '23 money?
Well, if I am not mistaken, we have moved any balances forward off of Dreaming Creek. We've moved those forward.
Okay, so this number won't go down once, Dreaming Creek, the financials are closed out?
No,
Okay.
no. And this plan should reflect it. I don't do this plan anymore. I used to do this plan, the residency did this plan, but we have project programmers that in Lynchburg. One guy that programs these, and he and I talk a lot, but the residency doesn't prepare this anymore, but we have all tremendous amount of input, but he punches in the numbers, and basically we give him, what we want him to do. But if I am not mistaken, any balance we had off Dreaming Creek has already been moved forward.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? Yes, sir.
Just for Mr. Brown's information, Trinity meets Tin Top, where Trinity Road meets Tin Top is where Bellevue is,
Okay,
and it runs,
Oh, yeah, I know what that's at.
runs to Mill Pond.
okay. Mill Pond, okay.
Yes, on,
We'll certainly take a look at that and see what we need.
as you head to West Spence on the left-hand side. Yeah. I know exactly where it's at. Any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the 6-year plan as laid out? Oh, yes, excuse me. Anyone here to address Mr. Brown or the board in regards to the 6-year plan? All right, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and then ask for a motion to approve the 6-year plan as written.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the, VDOT 6-year plan for secondary roads.
Motion duly made, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise, all right. Thank you, Mr. Brown, as always.
Always a pleasure, folks.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just for a moment, pass something on to Mr. Brown.
Yeah.
It's not on the agenda, but since he's here, I'm still getting complaints and calls about folks that are turning the wrong way on 460. Down there at Pamplin Road and Richmond Highway. They come up to the stop sign, the GPS tells them to take a left. And they take a left into oncoming traffic instead of going across the median and taking a left. And I'm still getting calls about that. Still happening a lot. And I know y'all were looking at that.
We have looked at that, and quite frankly, I'm not gonna say we've run out of options. I have discussed with our district traffic engineer and I don't know. I think a big problem is that the medians are raised in there, and you cannot really see 4 lanes. And it's been my recommendation that we grade 460 medians down and create some open space in there, especially looking back toward the east. Where someone could see that 4-lane traffic, could see the westbound lane. I have not had any success in getting any traction with that, but I think that is the ultimate. I think that's really, I think that's where we're at and what we need to be considering.
I just wanted to pass it on. That
Well,
we're
I
still
agree with
getting
you,
this
and I
issue.
still get from, the sheriff and I had a discussion about this a while back. I have people call me and say, I'm at a westbound vehicle in eastbound. At one, probably a month ago, and it's scary, and I don't know how you.
And I know y'all put up signs and y'all have done what you can, but it's
And I don't know how
still an
you-
issue.
And I don't know how you get the GPS people to change, because they do not, they don't listen.
GPS.
But I am to the point that I would like to grade down that median on Route 460, the way you can see all 4 lanes. I think is that gonna keep people from making that left that GPS tells them to? Not all of them, but some of them will see that westbound lane over there and hopefully help them make a decision based on their wits rather than a computer.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Okay, next is public hearing, conditional use permit, 220931 Verizon Wireless, William D. Lancaster. Anyone here to speak in favor? Mr. Rourke?
Would you like me to give a little overview?
Yeah, I think it'll be good.
And petitioner representatives here. So we have a conditional use permit application for a wireless communication facility, otherwise known as a cell tower, in the Holiday Lake area. It's proposed to be 199 feet tall. It is, the property owner is a Mr. Willard Lancaster. It is tax map number 56A15A. The property is roughly 46.9 acres, so it's a larger piece of property. It's very close, behind this property is the 4-H Center and the state park, so that kind of gives you a general idea of where it's at out there. This project came to the planning commission, and we held a public hearing at the planning commission in December of 2022. From that meeting, we had a neighbor that came and spoke, had some concerns. And from that meeting, in collaboration with the planning commission, the petitioner, and the neighbor, the project was tabled at that meeting, and Verizon went back and they moved the location. So the sheet that you have in front of you tonight is the new location, which is about 200 feet or so to the east and north of where it was. On that sheet, there's a little square there, there's a shed kind of in the middle of the pasture. That's what the old location, so it's moved away from the neighbor's property that had the concerns. So that held the project up for about 4 months, came back to the planning commission in April, and the planning commission recommended unanimously to approve the petition with the list of conditions that you see in your packet. And I'll take any questions if you want, or Mr. Alvis and Mr. Holland are here representing Verizon in the petition. And I believe Mr. Alvis has a short presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Rourke, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Charlie Alvis. I'm with the law firm of Williams Mullen in Charlottesville, here representing Verizon Wireless, and with me is Nate Holland of GD Insights, the project manager, and Mr. Lancaster, the property owner, is also here. I just have a couple of PowerPoint slides. I won't take too long. I just wanted to show you a few things about the project up on the screen. This is the parcel. And you can see that circle in the middle is kind of a circle around where the site is. That dark line that connects out to Holiday Lake Road is the access road that would lead in to the equipment compound. And that's right in the middle of that bullseye, if you will. That's where the cell tower would be located. This is a side elevation of the tower. You can see there's only one array depicted on this picture, but there would actually be space for two other carriers or county emergency services or other users. And the co-location is managed by a third party that Verizon contracts with, and anybody's able to get on that who applies through that process.
Excuse me, I'm dying to ask this question. And when I read all these stipulations and stuff the planning commission put on there, but on the 199-foot tower, no lights.
That's
I wonder how long that's gonna last.
well, the rule's 200 feet is where they start having to
Okay.
require lights. So it's 195 feet, and there's a 4-foot lightning rod on top, and it doesn't have to be lighted at night. So this is a aerial view of the equipment compound. The lease area is 75 feet square, and the compound's 50 feet square. You see there's some equipment there, and then the tower's right in the middle, and the access road that would occasionally be traversed by service vehicles is sort of comes right up to the side there. So as Mr. Rourke mentioned, there's a second location for the site, and so we redid a balloon test after the Planning Commission hearing in December. And so I wanted to present y'all with the photo simulations from that. You see here the site is kind of that red and white square right in the middle of this picture. The red dots are where the balloon was visible on the day of the balloon test, and the blue dots are places that photographs were taken where the balloon was not visible. So we have just 4 pictures to show kind of a simulation of what the tower would look like. This is on Holiday Lake Road from the northwest. You can barely see the balloon in this picture, but this is the depiction of what the tower would look like from that part of the road. The second one is from Webb Mill Road from the west. And this one, it's hard to tell on the screen, but there is an arrow in those trees that points to a depiction of where the tower would be. This is Holiday Lake Road from the south, again, just over the treetops, hard to see on the screen, but there's an orange arrow right in the center of this photograph. Here's another from Holiday Lake Road from the south. And again, it's kind of in those trees. Obviously, when the trees are leafed out, that'll be more or less entirely screened. But you can see here this was in the wintertime, so you can see where the balloon was able to be seen from the road here. And then the last few of these pictures, I'll just tell you where these were taken, but in none of these photographs was the balloon visible. This is Chestnut Grove Church Road from the northeast, State Park Road from the north, Holiday Lake Road, this is from the southeast, this one's from the northwest. This is southeast of the site. This is where Holiday Lake and Webb Mill intersect. And this last one is on 4-H Camp Road from the north. And so I would just to conclude, I would say that this was a site that Verizon obviously spent a careful amount of time considering and going back and responding to the concerns from the neighboring property owner and the Planning Commission. And we had a couple letters of support filed earlier in the process, but one of which was from the 4-H Center. They're very supportive of this and are looking forward to having the service. And I'd be happy to answer any questions from you all.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Hogan?
I got 2 questions. So one, you said there's space for 3 arrays. Obviously, one's gonna be Verizon's, and then whoever else applies to use that tower. But there's a condition in here that we would have the ability to utilize that site if we needed it for public safety. I just happen to know from some ongoing projects with radio communications with our fire rescue sheriff's office, you know, that's a dead zone for everything over there. Cell phones, radios, you name it, nothing works. How would that process work if somebody else gets those two arrays on there before we need it, or we find out we need it? I'm just curious for that one, and then I'll ask the second question.
Well, I mean, the answer is the county is treated as any other, user. So the county does go through the process. The nice thing is the county knows about it right now, and, you can be first in line if that's something that you think would help, which it sounds like it would. I think in general, it's the reason there's not a condition that can require it is because there's state law but doesn't permit that kind of conditioning on an approval of a site like this. But, Verizon would be absolutely happy to have the county on there. It's just a matter of, go through the process.
But we would have to pay for that spot, or no, I don't know that. I'm asking, I don't know.
Nate, do you know that answer to that?
Normally, excuse me, my name's Nate Holland, representing Verizon. Normally, the county can use the space free of charge, but as Charlie mentioned, there's the application process that you have to go through, and it's just Verizon looks at it, and you figure out if there's any other equipment that's going on the tower, that sort of things. But we can provide whoever that needs to have that information with that process.
Thank you. And then the other question was reference to, I know I saw some correspondence between one of the adjoining landowners and asking about masking and the color of the pole, I guess. I saw in here that it's going to be more of a muted color to kind of blend in with the trees. Just as I'm traveling around, I'm seeing cell towers that are made to look like trees. I mean, it's right there beside the state forest. Is that a possibility in this instance? I'm just curious.
I think the answer to that is, and I'm not as technically informed as Mr. Holland is, so he might be able to speak to this, but I think the answer to that is they're generally not the preference just for purposes of being most effective, but if that's not correct, you can.
Yeah, I mean, normally with those towers, you have a 195-foot tree pole that looks like a tree, and it sticks out a lot more. Usually they work better when they're more in line with height with the trees that are out there, but they're more noticeable. It's a galvanized steel, in my opinion. I think those look the best. And you do get some degradation of service from utilizing those because the fake tree fawns can inhibit the signal a little bit. So they're really not preferred unless, it's totally required. And they're very expensive to build, too, as well.
Mr. Hogan, I'll add to that, because this came up at the planning commission, is that already by moving the site, there was, I believe, Mr. Squire said, we lost 28 feet of height, something.
About round in there. I don't know the exact height.
So there's already, from the initial proposal to now, that you've lost coverage area. And he was talking about if you did that stealth, you lose more in your signal. So you've already lost some by relocating it for an accommodation.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, no one signed up.
No one signed up? Okay. Okay, gentlemen. You've heard from Verizon.
You actually still open a public hearing and then close the public.
Oh, okay. I didn't open it. I didn't open it. I thought I did. I said CUP 220931.
He opened it, he needs to close.
Yeah, that's all right. I thought I took my Prevagen or not.
Didn't write it down.
Oh, my. Oh. Okay, moving on, we've heard from Mr. Rourke, and we heard from Verizon, and we heard from, that's all who we heard from. No probably don't have said anything. Planning Commission voted unanimously to approve this after several meetings that they went through. So everything is on the go. Green light has been given. What's the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I've heard from multiple people that want it and need it in that area. I did get one contact from a neighbor at the initial start of the conversation who was worried about the location, but the steps have been taken to remedy some of her concerns. I have not heard from her since, so I don't know if all of her concerns are met, but I'll make a motion to pass this conditional use permit for the cell tower. It's for public safety, it's needed in that area. Including all the conditions passed by the planning commission.
It's a resolution to that effect.
Well,
Yeah.
how do you want me to say that?
Adopt the
I would
resolution
make a
with.
motion to approve the resolution
Yes,
as
sir.
presented in our packet for the cell tower.
Motion duly made, is that a second?
Second.
Okay. Further discussion? All in favor? Please signify by saying aye. Aye. Disapprove likewise. Thank you. All right. This is on the budget.
Open the public hearing.
Hmm?
Open the public hearing for the budget.
Yeah. Okay, next is another public hearing that we have proposed FY 2024 budget. And we have two people that have signed up to speak. First, Dr. Bennett. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Annette Bennett. I live at 17343 Red House Road, Red House, Virginia. My home away from home is the school board office, which is 316 Court Street. First, I just want to thank you all for all the work that you all are doing on the FY24 budget. I know how difficult that is, and we certainly appreciate all your work in trying to work all of that out. And I also want to thank you for your consideration of the school division's approved budget by our school board. As requested, we have revised that budget to the April 7th calc tool, which I believe is what you all have been using. It does include a request for 100% of the local share, which would allow us to recoup 100% of the state share. So that's just our request, and we are here to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, any questions for Dr. Bennett?
I guess
Mr.
I
Hogan.
have one, yeah, and it's just not necessarily budget related, well, I guess it is budget related. So I just, in looking at the May financial report that Mr. Tibbs sends us, if I'm reading this right, we still got about $1.3 million left in facilities line item we haven't spent.
Right.
Do we anticipate spending any
Oh, yeah.
of that between now and then?
Absolutely. We are in
Beyond the
phase.
Next 6 weeks?
We are, so that money came directly from the state as a construction fund. And we are in the process of phase 3 of renovating the high school. And that money is going towards that project. And it should be, we have until 2024 to complete, to use those funds. So we will be done in October of next year is our timeline. Good question.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Ray.
Yes. Dr. Bennett.
Yes, sir.
I had a conversation with you regarding the 7% raise for teachers and staff for the school division. Because when I first heard that, it didn't seem to be the way the school board operates. I was on the school board for 8 years, and we never just said we were going to give the employees 7%, but the school board would look and say, well, this is what we would like to do. Best case scenario, we would
Correct.
like to give them 7%. But I think the perception was that the school employees were just going to get 7%. That's why I wanted to have that
Yes.
conversation with you and to bring clarity, because my understanding is in February, when the proposal went out from the school board, they were saying they would like to give the employees 7%.
Thank you. Yes, when the first calc tools or first governor's budget and the House budget and the Senate budget were released, and we had our joint meeting with you all, at that time, both the House and the Senate had a 7% compensation packet in their budgets. The governor still had 5%. As that process has stalled in Richmond and not progressed in order to have a budget out of Richmond, we have dropped back to 5% in our planning and our contracts, because we're not as hopeful anymore that the House and the Senate budgets will be approved. We're still waiting. All of this is obviously contingent on what comes out of Richmond, but we are not looking at a 7%. We're not as hopeful about that at all.
Yes, sir.
If the school division is not level funded, I know for a fact that the impact for the least among us would be harmful. A lot of students can get by, but those that have special needs, whether it's mental health needs, those kids would suffer. And that's what I'm concerned about. It's what impact does not having your full budget funded. So, and that has nothing to do with the fact that I used to be on the school board. It's about the over 2,000 students who would be impacted. And then what message does it send for people who are looking at coming to our county as far as economic development if they see we are not supporting the schools as well as we should? That's a concern that I have. And I say that as I exit the school. I have a week, one more week. So I won't be getting it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Hill?
I'd just like to commend Dr. Bennett for her work, because I know the first year I was on his board, her and I didn't see eye to eye on some stuff, and I've been really pleased the way that her staff and herself have managed the budget over the last 3 years.
Thank you.
And been able to put excess into the CPI fund. And so I just want to commend her and her staff on doing that for the last 3 years.
Thank you. We try to be good stewards of everything we get.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we need to do now.
Anybody else? Okay,
Yeah. Well, no, we got Ms. Morton. Ms. Morton.
That's a tough act to follow, Dr. Bennett. I'm Patricia Morton. I live at 5831 Abbott Road, and I'm your Director of Elections. We wanted to come and talk to you tonight about the budget for the full-time deputy that we plan to hire starting July 1st. We had requested a salary of $40,000, and it was set in the preliminary budget at $31,500. While we appreciate that this is an hourly increase above what the part-time deputies make now, we still believe it is not really the right way to set this for the person we would like to get, for the type of skills we need. We came about this salary proposal of $40,000 two ways. One, I talked to 9 other counties about what they were paying their deputies and how long they'd been there. And I threw out the top 2 highest-paid counties. I talked to counties that were the same size as us, so between 9,000 and 14,000 voters, and we're at 12,200 now. I believe that you probably got this spreadsheet initially in the data that we sent over with our initial request. And the average, throwing out those top 2 outliers, was 40,000 and change, almost 41,000. So that was one way we looked at it. The other way we looked at it in an electoral board meeting a while ago was that the deputy, because of the duties that I will explain more about of what the full-time deputy needs to be prepared to do, ought to be paid approximately half of what my salary is. And so that came out just about the same. It would be more like 41,000, depending on what the raises the state does, which is not yet decided. But it's in the same ballpark. So we thought the 40,000 was very reasonable for what we're trying to do. One thing I want to make very clear is this is not an entry-level position. We need someone with, in the job description, I put 5 years business experience. We have a very difficult software package that we all need to know that does this job. As you've heard, Veris is quite old and in the process of being replaced. This is a long-term project, and it's currently slated to be new software that we have in early 2025. And since next year is going to be a very hectic year, 2 or 3 elections for sure, and it may be very chaotic with the presidential next year. I'm actually very happy that this new software got delayed into 2025 so that we can manage it and learn it. But the deputy registrar, the most important thing that we do not have today is that I don't have the ability with part-timers to train one person to take over everything if something happens in an emergency. And elections don't wait. Elections are on their own schedule, set, of course, by the nation and the state. So if I get run over by a logging truck on October 31st of this year, we have 1 week to get the assistant, the deputy, up to full speed and make sure that election goes smoothly. There's just not a lot of leeway there. So the deputy right now, I've been training my deputies. I have 3, and I've been training them somewhat in silos because I don't have them full-time and they can't learn everything that I do. So, for example, one of them has done the same-day registrations that came into law last year and election night reporting, in addition to what we call our regular work. Another one helped with redistricting and what we call street file management, which I've talked to Johnny about a lot and I talked to Bobby Wingfield about a lot, which is managing what voter goes into what precinct and helping with the audits that we get from the state once or twice a year. The deputy registrar position is complex administrative work. As I said, they need to understand the software, and so I'm looking for someone ideally who has at least 5 years business experience, a degree in business or computer science or public policy would be fine, something like that. The ideal candidate would have supervisory skills so that when I retire, they could slot into that position. I don't know that we're going to find that at either salary, either the proposed salary or the one that's currently in the budget. But we will do the best we can. Some offices don't necessarily try to hire their first full-time person, deputy, to become the next general registrar. Some of them try to hire somebody who's happy to stay as the deputy and becomes the backbone of the office when they change registrars. And that would be another way that the county could go. So the main thing I want to point out is that this is not an entry-level job. There are a lot of things that the deputy does that you might not think about. So in addition to processing registrations and checking on felons and checking on addresses and supporting the early voting, early voting and vote by mail and the candidate qualifications, they also basically have to be willing and able to step up and take over and take on the responsibility of my position in an emergency, which of course I hope doesn't happen. So, any questions?
Reverend Jones.
My question is, among those counties, which were the counties that you compared?
Uh-huh.
And what were they paying that
Okay.
position?
So I compared City of Manassas Park, that was one I threw out because they're at 56,000. Williamsburg City is at 42,500. Buckingham County is at 32,000 and change. City of Falls Church, I also threw out, they were at 57,300. Floyd County is at almost 45,000. Nelson County is at 39,300. Giles County, which is actually the closest to us, both in terms of median income and size, is at 50,000 for their deputy. Bristol City is at 36,000, and King William is at 40,000.
So do you have Prince Edward County, for example, or?
I did not
Charlotte
have Prince Edward in here, and I did not have Charlotte in here. I know Prince Edward is quite low. I don't know if Charlotte is, I don't know where Charlotte is.
Thank you.
But having conversations, Prince Edward actually is a good example. And thank you for bringing that up. I meant to say that. Lynette Wright, who is the registrar in Prince Edward County, actually did have to take over in an emergency for her boss because I believe it was about 5 years ago, he had a heart attack, unfortunately, and passed away suddenly. And it was right before an election. So the odds, like I said, I hope it doesn't happen to me. But we want the county to be protected, and we want, an election to go smoothly if something should happen.
So really, those counties, you're not comparing apples to oranges here.
In terms of what? I'm sorry?
Population.
The population? Actually, I am. Population, the number of voters, City of Manassas Park has 9,000, Williamsburg City has a little over 10,000, Buckingham a little under 11,000, City of Falls Church a little over 11,000, Floyd's over 11,000, Nelson's a little over 11,000. Giles and we are both at 12,000 and change, and Bristol City's 12,000. King William's closer to 14,000. It's the only one that's really larger, a little bit larger. And would you like to see this? Would it be helpful?
That's all right.
The median income does vary. I looked at that as well, just to try to get a feel for this. And obviously, City of Falls Church is way up there, being in Northern Virginia. They're much higher than we are. They're almost 3 times the median income we have here. But some of them are lower. Bristol City is lower median income than us. Giles, which pays 50,000 to their deputy, is just slightly higher median income.
That's good.
they're
That's good.
Okay.
Now, the thing I don't understand is in between elections, okay? I just can't understand how come you cannot train one of the electoral board members.
I can train the electoral board members
Yeah.
to help with the election.
Certainly.
First of all, it's illegal for some of the things. They are not allowed to even see the screens of the software that we use.
Okay, but the
separation.
other amenities, okay?
My electoral board is great, obviously. I work very well with them, and they appreciate me and work very well with me.
I'm sure.
And they do understand an awful lot about what happens and what has to go on to prepare for the elections.
But what do they do to help you in your job activities, day-to-day activities?
The day-to-day activities, they're mostly, I would say, it's setting policy. It's not like, they're not like here full-time.
That much policy?
Well, there's an awful lot of security work we're doing. They're helping us work on that. The state has 177 requirements that have come down in the last few years for security and policies, emergency plans, things like that. So I've started to draw them in more to help with those sorts of things. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes work, and they can use.
It's got to be, because I'll be honest with you, I am not sold on this at all. Not at all.
I understand. There are a lot of people around the nation who think we work one day a year, but honestly, that I can assure you that is not
I'm sure it's
true.
more than one day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hilarious to think otherwise.
Yes.
But I just cannot see. I cannot see a deputy registrar when you got electoral board there, you got 3 part-time employees.
Yes, and that would go
Can't
down.
find time.
The
Can't
part-time.
find time.
would go down.
That just drives me crazy, just thinking of that, about the time element that's here.
So we process registrations, obviously, and some of those take 5 minutes and some of those take 3 weeks. Not obviously full-time in those 3 weeks. But there are a surprising number of complications with the registration process. Because I'm always calling Johnny or sometimes Bobby Wingfield to find out if a house is actually built, because Timmons doesn't reflect that the house has been built, even though the address has been assigned. There are all kinds of things that go on behind the scenes that you might not think of.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I invite any of you to come and learn more about what we do, because it's pretty interesting to me.
I'll use myself as an example. The last time I ran, okay, there were questions I needed to be answered. You couldn't answer any of them. You got to call the State Board of Elections. Hey, calling the State Board of Elections is not taking up your time.
I'm not sure I understand the comment.
Okay, you did not take your time to say, okay, let me find out for you, or try to help me. And I've heard it from other people that's elected. The same nickel dime story. And I tell you the truth, we resented it.
I'm very sorry to hear that, and I wish you had brought that to me sooner.
It wouldn't have done any good. You can't answer it. You have to call Richmond.
Well, when I took this position, when I interviewed for the position, Frank Pointer, who was on the board at the time, said that it takes at least 4 years to learn this job, and we know you can't make a commitment, but we'd like to see you here for 5 or 6 years. And being a little bit perhaps cocky in my own brains and my willingness and ability to learn, I thought, oh, it can't really be that challenging. I've been in this job almost 3 years now, and I came to the conclusion last year that Frank is right. It does take a long time to learn this job.
Well, in your previous job, that was where at?
I was in the software industry for many, many years.
In the what?
In the software industry for many, many
Software
years.
industry,
I started
okay.
out as a programmer. My degree is computer science.
Okay, so you was not a registrar.
I was not a registrar, no. I had nothing to do with elections other than I was an officer of elections when I was hired. And that was my introduction in 2016.
But you even want this so-called deputy to have at least 5 years' experience.
5 years' experience in business, not necessarily as a registrar or as a deputy registrar. That's right. So I'm looking for someone who understands how software works, how business works. Ideally, they would have had some supervisory skills. I don't know that I'm going to find that, but we will see who we get.
Mr. Hips.
You just mentioned in the course of discussion that the part-time hours or numbers would go down.
Yes, the part-time hours would go down.
Suggestion that you would have yourself in a full-time deputy and keep the part-time.
The part-time, so right now we use an office assistant to cover in emergencies. So, for example, if I'm on vacation, they cover so that the deputy can go for lunch, because one of the changes we made in the last couple of years at county request was to stay open the entire time, that the office is 8:30 to 4:30 right now. And so we occasionally bring someone in part-time for that. But what I envision going forward July 1st is that it's myself, a full-time deputy, and then part-time assistants for early voting. And then, like I said, emergency coverage kind of thing, and projects. We're just now wrapping up getting 1,900 letters, notices out to the Spout Spring folks, because we moved the precinct a while ago permanently, and Mr. Lashney informed me, yes, I really had to notify them again, even though I notified them last year, because it's a permanent change. So we're working on that project. So I bring in assistants for special projects like that.
Excuse me just a second. I want to clarify something that I had a question on. Now,
I think the question is, the county employee handbook for a full-time county position is 8 to 4:30. So that would be a question, would this employee be working those hours?
The electoral board set the hours at 8:30 to 4:30 in the past. They have not changed that. That certainly could be revisited at any time. We come in early when needed, and we stay late as needed. We don't get all the holidays, as you know, because Election Day is a holiday. Juneteenth, if we have a primary, we don't get it. And we work a couple of Saturdays for each election. We sometimes have to work the Sunday before the election. And this full-time person would be my partner in that. You know, I would expect them to be putting in as many hours as I put in. So
And they are compensated,
they are not,
They are
this
not.
is an exempt position, so they would not
so they're
be,
non-exempt, okay? So,
no, this is exempt. So this means that they would not get any,
Not necessarily.
oh, it's non-exempt?
They don't supervise anyone.
So, anyway, my understanding is that this position gets the salary and they do not get any overtime. Is that correct, Ms. Adams?
I don't know if you can do
We
that.
don't pay overtime, so,
Well, okay.
yeah,
So,
that part's correct.
Mr. Hinkle,
Mr. Chairman, I got a question again on, how many notices are you sending out on the Sprout Spring?
it's a little over 1,900, one to every
Okay.
voter.
Thank you. I thought I heard 19,000.
No, no, no,
Wait a minute,
no.
1,900, okay.
No, last year we had to send out over 12,000 for redistricting, yes. But
Thank
no, we don't have that many voters. We're growing, but not that fast.
Reverend Jones.
Yes. So what are the chances you will be able to find someone of this caliber for the amount that you're advertising? Would that be you looking for somebody that's retired and just want to get a little pocket change, or
Well,
mean,
no.
do you feel like you would be able to find somebody at that,
At the lower
at
salary?
that low, at that?
It is definitely going to be a challenge, because if I was poking around different websites, McDonald's pays $15 an hour. This comes out to $15 an hour. The proposed salary of $31,500 is $15 an hour. And you can get that at McDonald's without any stress, without any real responsibilities. You can get that at Kroger's. You can get that at a lot of places without the skill set, without the skill set that we need in this position. So, yes, I took this job because I'm passionate about voting, and I'm passionate about seeing that our elections are run fairly. And I can hope that I'd find someone else with that same passion who's willing to work for a lower amount, but it's certainly going to be a lot easier if we pay them more fairly. So, thank you.
Any other questions for Mrs. Morton? Okay, well, thank you for coming
Thank
forward.
you. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else to speak? All right, I hereby close this public hearing. Next, we have Mr. Bruce Jones, Senior Extension Agent. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm Bruce Jones, Senior Extension Agent for Agriculture here in Appomattox County. I appreciate the board allowing me the opportunity to come before you this afternoon to discuss the current year budget that we're in and a budget shortfall that we are going to experience related to the salary increases that Virginia Tech authorized that I discussed back at one of the earlier budget activities. Looking at the current budget, if we take all of the non-salary and wage line items that we haven't utilized so far, and we use that allocation and transfer it over to the salary and wage line item, that would be my first request, is that we would be allowed to move those funds into the salary and wage area. We will still experience a shortfall of $2,099.64. So just wanted to make you aware of that shortfall and and ask that you might be able to help us out with that. And this was the salary increase that was enacted at the end of last year that came as an unexpected surprise by Virginia Tech. And just for your knowledge, the county has a memorandum of understanding with Virginia Tech where that the county pays 1/3 of the salary and benefits for the employees of the extension agent employees. And we're very fortunate. Other counties are actually at a higher percentage. I've fought for that over the years and kept that where we haven't had to address that.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Jones? Yes, Reverend Jones.
I'm talking a lot tonight.
That's all right.
I'm new to the board, so I'm trying to understand. So when Virginia Tech gives a raise, the county is obligated, or
Well, that's
was it
just
an
for,
agreement? or-
there's an agreement, a memorandum of
Yeah, that's
understanding.
what I meant, MOU.
And that was conducted quite a number of years ago. And the Virginia Tech utilizes state funding to provide the majority of the salary, the 2/3 portion.
Thank you.
Mr. Hibbs.
Was it roughly $3,000 that you were short?
Roughly, well, a little less than 2,100.
For the year?
Yes,
And have you spoken to Ms. Adams about this?
yes.
Any other questions?
So, to make-
Mr. Hogan?
make sure I understand we're on the same page. Are you talking the 23 budget year or the 24 budget year?
The budget we're currently in
Budget we're in now?
right now.
Oh, okay.
And I would like to offer an appreciation because of the proposed budget does fully fund the salary and wage request.
Any other questions? Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We got educated. Thank you, Bruce.
A motion's in order. Yeah. Make a motion to approve. Can he go and make the motion? to go and
Yes.
appropriate those funds?
What's the, I don't know what the
2099.64.
299.64.
To Department 8303.
Has to approve that for this year. Okay.
The current budget.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hibbs.
I move that we transfer $2,099.64 to Department 8303 to cover that shortage that Mr. Jones reported to us.
Motion duly made. Is that second?
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, where we
Mr.
move
Hope.
it from?
Well, you can either appropriate new funds, or we do have money in operating reserve that we can transfer from there.
What is your
And
preference?
operating reserve, 1101 would be fine, transfer
Okay,
from 1101
so I will
to 83.
amend that to say to move the funds from 1101 to 8303.
Okay. Any additional questions? So motion made and duly second. We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Hibbs.
Aye.
Reverend Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Hinkle.
Aye.
Mr. Hogan.
Aye.
And also vote aye. Okay, gentlemen, moving right along. Resolution for personal property tax relief program. You have before us in our handbook and all in regards to adoption of the 23 personal property tax relief program resolution per recommendation from the Commissioner of the Revenue. Floor is open for discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hogan.
I think this is the resolution we do every year. It's just based on, the county gets a set number of dollars from the state for personal property tax relief, and then depending on how many vehicles you have, the ratio has to change what you can assign per vehicle, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
That's it.
Okay.
Same amount of money.
So it's always the same amount of money, it's just where you spread it around.
Right.
Is there a motion then to approve the resolution?
Chairman, I move we approve the resolution for the personal property tax.
Motion made, is there a second? Duly second. Further discussion? Have a roll call vote. Mr. Hips? Reverend Jones? Mr. Hinkle?
Aye.
Mr. Hogan?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Next is committee appointment, Central Virginia Alliance for Community Living Committee appointment. So we need to appoint, or we do not have to appoint a person, I should say, to fill this, but I think we ought to represent the board. Since the agenda has been put out, does anyone have a recommendation at this point in time? And as we know, and as we have read, this would take effect September of 2023. So I think we need to table this until next meeting. All in agreement?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Hinkle?
I got a question. How much time commitment and what exactly is involved in this being appointed to this committee?
Yeah. Do you know, Ms. Adams?
No, I'd have to find out.
Okay. And that's a good
I have no idea
question.
what the committee does.
It's the, area agency on, used to be called the Area Agency on Aging, and they changed the name, so it deals with, seniors and, issues of, it's really all kind of stuff, finances and, mobility, it's kind of a.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I'm glad you asked that because I did not know it took the place of the Community AAA.
That's what this is now.
Okay. Community Living Alliance. Okay. Okay, is it in accordance with the board to table this? Okay. Next is consent agenda, includes approval of all bills, minutes, supplemental appropriations, line item transfers, and fund transfers. Any item on the consent agenda shall be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member prior to the vote on the consent agenda. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be considered by the board individually in order which they were removed from the consent agenda immediately following consideration of the consent agenda. And hope everyone's had the opportunity to review the consent agenda. Is there any questions, comments, clarifications? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as is?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Is that second?
Second.
Discussion? We have a roll call vote. Mr. Hips? Reverend Jones? Mr. Hinkle?
Aye.
Mr. Hogan?
Aye.
Also vote aye. Mr. Latchney?
No report. Other than to report, I enjoy working here now.
And we'd like to offer you some feedback on that. And hey, we're glad you're here. All right, Ms. Adams.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I placed the newsletter or report in front of you at the beginning of the meeting. You can kind of scroll through it and see if you have any questions. A few important things, as you can tell, there are a lot of projects going on within the county. We are participating in the space study that the report will be made at the July meeting from Blair Smith, who was the architect on that. We're conducting a salary study. We're also working with Mr. Boone on the VOTEC Center, and ACE has been very busy with IT. We are going through the email transition. I think most of you now have that set up on your iPads and hopefully working well with that. We're looking at hardware replacement for saving all the software finances, going to a remote save on that as far as to the cloud. And we won't have hardware where, we have to go in and save it daily and transport it somewhere and lock it up. Public safety meeting, I'm not sure if the Public Safety Committee wants to elaborate on this, but we did have that meeting and working with the consultants on the radio feasibility study. And basically, everything else, we're replacing software, we're replacing our website, doing a revamp on it. And so staff members have been extremely busy trying to coordinate all of these projects.
It looks like it, sounds like it. Any questions for Ms. Adams?
We're excited about getting into advanced technologies.
21st century.
21st.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hinkle.
when, I asked the county minister when we might be getting another update on the VOTEC Center as far as how the progress is going and.
I can ask Mr. Boone if you'd rather receive it from him, maybe just give a status update at the next meeting. I will tell you that they are finalizing the MOU with CVCC, so any student who signs up for a class will sign up with CVCC. They'll receive CVCC certification or degrees. The only difference is they'll be taking the class here and not in Lynchburg. But CVCC, they hire the teachers, they do all the financial, everything. It's just done directly with them. Mr. Rourke and I have been meeting a lot. We met with Go Virginia about possibly looking at some funding to assist to go ahead and build out some of that VOTEC Center to kind of expedite the process. We've talked to the Tobacco Commission about funding to possibly help with the equipment needs. Dominion has been down and met with him, and they're looking at doing a donation of some equipment. And as far as completion, the Weldon Lab is probably 90% complete. And now they've opened up the emergency services, human services room. That's probably 95% complete. And BWXT came down. They did a tour and gave some good suggestions on curriculums that pretty much guarantee hire at BWXT if you complete, it's a MT1. And we've had discussions with Framatome, and they are like reinventing or reigniting their curriculums for their workforce. So we're in the early stages, so we're able to work with them on what their expectations are for employment. What else? It's a lot going, it's just like a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, I think you covered a lot of it. The grant part is, taking a lot of time because we've engaged with the planning district.
Yeah, the free.
Alec Grubner at the planning district commission to help us coordinate and organize the grant submission. So there's meetings with Alec and coordination there as well. I think that's it. Ms. Adams and I have spent a lot of time dealing with these things.
And we're trying to create this as a community project. We've engaged the town, and they've given their letters of support. And so now we're forming an advisory committee where there will be input from different sectors within our community to demonstrate. They'll represent our workforce needs and education needs alike.
Is there a tentative date for the first class?
Well, Mr. Boone is very aggressive, as you very well know, and he says August.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, Johnny and I like.
And I guess, Mr. Chairman, my other question would be,
Yes, sir.
what's the status of the community auditorium remodel?
This one.
Yeah.
Well, that's included in either the latter part of Phase 1 or the early parts of Phase 2. So I'm not sure, I don't think anything's been done since you took that tour. And, I mean, it looks nice, but that's kind of pushed back until he gets the welding lab up and going.
All right. Any other items? Thank you, Ms. Adams.
You're welcome.
Next is reports and informational items that consist of the school financial report, the R.E. Lee Soil and Water Conservation District meeting minutes. Any questions on those items? If not, we'll venture into supervisor concerns. Mr. Hibbs. Reverend Jones. Mr. Hinkle.
Well, in the facilities meeting, it came up if the courthouse renovation project may cause some concern about moving heavy equipment around the Veterans Memorial. And so I've been putting feelers out to the veterans organizations as to how they would feel about moving that memorial either to Cortlandt Park or to the American Legion Post. I understand at one time it was considered going to American Legion Post. And it's, right now it's running about 60-40 American Legion Post and Cortlandt Park.
Really? Okay.
And then the other question they had was, well, what about the Eternal Flame? Will the Eternal Flame move with the memorial? Because that was added later, I guess, or would the Eternal Flame stay where it's at?
Yeah, that Eternal Flame has been there since, as my plant manager used to say when I was working, it's as old as since Moby Dick was a minnow. Asked me did I fall over the floor like an idiot. Oh, look at Mr. Hibbs.
But I wanted to let you know in case you heard some rumors around town about.
You done good. Yeah. Mr. Hogan.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just glad that Ms. Johnson was able to get her road paved.
You're right, amen.
Finally. She's been coming here for years. I do, on a serious note, today is Peace Officers Memorial Day. And today is the day where nationwide we recognize those law enforcement officers who paid the ultimate sacrifice in the service of their community. And I just want to, my fault, I didn't prepare one. Normally we would present a resolution and vote on it, but I want to make sure that our sheriff's office knows that we appreciate them and support them, and we thank them for all they do. And we have had a Appomattox County Sheriff's, well, the sheriff was killed in the line of duty a number of years ago, but his name is on the wall in D.C. And just want to recognize those who've paid the ultimate sacrifice and thank those who serve our citizens and put their lives on the line every day. If you could just make sure the sheriff and the staff knows that, thank you.
You know, let me ask you this. Should we've never done it before. I don't know why. Maybe I may not do it this time. Should we give some thought to the VSP because division, whatever it is here? 3, is that what it is?
Well, funny, and I did not mean to neglect them, but all the law enforcement officers that
Okay.
serve our county, I mean, I thought about it coming up the road. In addition to the sheriff's office, we've got our troopers. We've got, state park police down at Holiday Lake that people forget about. We got conservation officers from the Department of Wildlife Resources that people don't always think about. We got national park police
Yeah.
that are here from time to time, for big events down at the Surrender Grounds. We've got an ABC agent that's a sworn law enforcement officer that works in this county. So there's a lot more than people realize. The brunt of it is our sheriff's office. They're the ones that's answering the calls for service on a day-to-day basis, and the state police, working accidents and assisting them. And so, yeah, I did not mean to forget them. I appreciate you reminding me.
Can't believe I thought of it. We'd like to recognize our commissioner, our treasurer. I didn't recognize her tonight. She missed the last meeting, so therefore I didn't recognize her tonight. And of course, Mayor Pamplin.
And we have library board, remember?
Huh?
Ms. Gillum, library board.
Yeah, library board, member, Ms. Gillum? Yes. And I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but I'm sure we are glad to have you here tonight. And hope you come back. Okay, upon saying that, I don't have any supervisor concern tonight that I can think of. Upon saying that, Mr. Hinkle.
Let us rise.
Just, everybody remember the meeting, special call meeting on,
Next Wednesday night.
okay.
Oh,
Retired or
it's a
still?
choice.
Oh, okay.
Wagon train
Hey,
or
Russell,
pizza.
Davidson, is it?
Pizza, that's fine. That's fine with me. You know what I'm gonna get? Yeah, blackberry.